Mr. Langford, are you certain these figures are accurate?
Yes, I'll enter into the record.
The judge's voice sliced through the courtroom like ice. Laughter froze on Eric's lips. The smugness that had lingered on his face vanished in an instant. His hand, still loosely holding that of his lover, began to tremble. Maya sat perfectly still at the opposite table, her face calm, unreadable. The woman everyone had once mocked for being too quiet, too plain, too patient, now sat watching as the truth, her truth, finally began to rise to the surface. For years, Eric Langford had belittled her, calling her weak, naive, and unworthy of his world. But here, under oath and in front of the same society that once adored him, every secret he had buried was about to burst open. This wasn't just a divorce hearing, it was a reckoning. It was the day a black woman's silence became her loudest weapon. "Welcome, story lovers," the narrator's voice would say, if this were a movie. "Where are you watching from? Drop your city below. Because this, right here, is not just a story about marriage or betrayal. It's a story about a woman who discovered her worth the hard way." Maya Langford was in her mid-30s, intelligent, calm, and graceful. By day, she worked as a senior project manager at a top firm. By night, she returned to a house that no longer felt like home. The mansion she had helped design now echoed with laughter that wasn't hers. Her husband, Eric, once the man who held her hand during her humble beginnings, had changed after success arrived. He became addicted to power, attention, and validation. The same woman whose intellect once impressed him was now accused of being too opinionated. Her confidence? Labeled as arrogance. Her independence? Disrespect. Soon, she stopped arguing. She stopped explaining. Instead, she started observing. Quietly, patiently. Now, as she sat outside the courtroom, waiting for the bailiff to call her name, she wasn't the fragile woman Eric thought she'd left behind. There was something fierce yet calm about her, a stillness born of truth waiting for its moment. Across the hall, Eric strutted in like a movie star on premiere night. He wore his arrogance like a custom-made suit. His new lover, Vanessa, a tall woman with designer perfume and a laugh that could slice glass, walked beside him. Together, they looked like a poster for vanity and money. They smirked when they saw Maya sitting alone, scrolling silently through her phone. "Still pretending to be calm?" Vanessa whispered, loud enough for Maya to hear. Eric chuckled, brushing his expensive watch. "She'll learn the hard way, babe. By tonight, I'll have everything." The air smelled of perfume, arrogance, and power, two things Eric believed he owned. He had bribed witnesses, manipulated lawyers, and rehearsed every line of his fake story. He had told anyone who cared to listen that Maya was unstable, bitter, and after his money. To the world, he was the respectable businessman. Maya was just the woman who married up. When the court session began, the air changed. Bang! The sound of the gavel echoed through the room. But beneath the noise, there was tension, something no one could name. The judge, Justice Evelyn Moore, didn't look at Eric the way most people did. She wasn't charmed by his polished speech or expensive suit. Her eyes lingered on Maya instead, with something between recognition and quiet respect. Maya met her gaze briefly, and a faint spark of understanding passed between them. She knew that look. Years ago, back in law school, Evelyn Moore had been her mentor, the only professor who had encouraged her to fight harder, to stand taller in rooms that weren't built for women like her. But Eric had no idea. He was too busy performing. His lawyer rose dramatically, painting Maya as a manipulative gold digger who wanted to bleed her husband dry. Eric smiled proudly, occasionally whispering comments meant to make the audience laugh. Maya didn't say a word. She sat with her hands folded neatly on her lap, her face still unreadable. She had seen this act before. He loved attention, and he thought the courtroom was his stage. Then came the financial disclosures. Eric leaned forward, chest out. Your Honor, all my assets have been declared honestly. He grinned, confident that he had hidden the right ones far away. Offshore accounts, shell companies, secret properties. But the judge's expression changed. Her brow furrowed slightly. Mr. Langford, she said slowly, are you certain these figures are accurate? A long pause filled the room. Eric laughed, the kind of laugh people give when they're nervous. Yes, Your Honor. Every cent accounted for. Vanessa smirked beside him, crossing her legs. But Justice Moore didn't smile back. Her eyes flicked toward Maya, then back to Eric. Something was unraveling. Mr. Langford, she said again, this time with steel in her voice. Falsifying financial documents before this court is perjury. Gasps echoed across the courtroom. Eric froze. His lawyer stuttered. What do you mean, Your Honor? The judge gestured to the clerk, who handed over a folder. Inside were printed emails, bank statements, and wire transfers, all tied directly to Eric's secret accounts. These were submitted under seal this morning, she continued calmly, by Mrs. Langford's legal counsel. It appears your client attempted to conceal over $4 million in undeclared assets. The color drained from Eric's face. Vanessa's confident smile faltered. The room buzzed with whispers. Maya finally looked up, meeting his eyes. No anger, no tears, just calm, quiet justice. Eric slammed his hands on the table. This is a setup. She's manipulating the system. The judge's gavel struck sharply. Enough, Mr. Langford. This court will not tolerate lies disguised as laughter. The sound echoed. Final. Irrevocable. Eric's entire world began to collapse right there in that silence. Justice Moore straightened her glasses and read the verdict. Due to evidence of financial deceit and misconduct, all jointly owned properties will be awarded to Mrs. Langford. Mr. Langford will also face charges for perjury and tax evasion. The courtroom erupted. Cameras flashed. Reporters whispered into their recorders. Vanessa covered her face, whispering, Eric, what did you do? He didn't answer. He couldn't. As the court adjourned, Maya stood slowly. Her lawyer smiled, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. You handled it perfectly, she said softly. Maya nodded, whispering, I didn't need to speak. The truth did. Outside, the steps of the courthouse were crowded with reporters, microphones flashing like lightning. Questions flew from every direction. Mrs. Langford, how do you feel? Did you know about the offshore accounts? Was this revenge? But Maya didn't stop. Her silence said everything. For years, she had been humiliated, erased, and dismissed. But today, her dignity had spoken louder than any speech could. She walked down the marble steps, heels clicking with purpose. For the first time in years, she wasn't walking away from something, she was walking toward peace. That evening, as Eric sat in his empty mansion surrounded by lawyers and investigators, the weight of what he'd lost finally sank in. Vanessa was gone. His reputation, destroyed. His accounts frozen. The same arrogance that once made him untouchable now left him isolated and small. Meanwhile, Maya returned home to her quiet apartment. She took off her heels, stood before the mirror, and looked at herself for a long time. For the first time in years, she smiled not because she had won, but because she had finally let go. Justice, she realized, wasn't revenge. It was peace. Later that night, she brewed tea and stood by her window, watching the city lights flicker like distant stars. She thought of all the women who had stayed silent out of fear, all the voices buried under ridicule. She whispered softly, let them see this and believe they can rise too. Because sometimes dignity doesn't shout. It doesn't fight for attention. It simply stands still until truth shines through. And somewhere, in another home, another woman scrolling through her phone might watch Maya's story and find courage in her quiet strength. So, to every woman who has ever been underestimated, every woman who has been told to stay quiet, every heart that has been bruised but not broken, remember this: silence is not weakness. Sometimes, silence is power wrapped in grace. Because when a woman chooses peace over revenge, her victory shakes the world in ways noise never could. Thank you for watching, the narrator would finally say. If Maya's story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful emotional stories of strength, dignity, and truth.